We begin today the Gemara on the Afayim Vav, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, Hasiyum, on the Masechta, the very last daf of Masechta Avoda Zara. We're holding the fourth line down from the top of the Yamud, where it says Rami Lei. So the Gemara here will explain something that it said in the last Mishnah. The Mishnah speaks about when you buy vessels from a guy, so what do you have to do to be allowed to use it? So the last thing the Mishnah said was when you have a shpud or a askala, which is a spit or a griddle or a grill that's used directly in fire with non-kosher food. So the rule always is kabaylai kach peltai. The way it absorbed the treif taste inside the keli, that's how you get it out. You have to then take it and put it in fire directly to burn out what's inside of it. Okay, so here on this the Gemara brings a contradiction from another Mishnah. Rami le Rav Amram le Rav Sheshes. Rav Amram asked the following question from Rav Sheshes. Tanan, there's a Mishnah that says by Kochim that hashpudin v'ha'askala, when it comes to this spit or this grill, melabnon ba'or, what you have to do with it is you have to put it into. This is our Mishnah actually. So here, first we're quoting what it says in our Mishnah. Right, that when you use it, taking it from a guy, you bought it from a guy, so you melabdon ba'or, that is, you have to put it into a fire and you leave it in the fire until it gets white right, a little white hot, exactly. And the Gemara is soon going to say that a certain external layer of it has to peel off. Then you know that you got it out completely. So the question on this is, but for Hatanan in the Mishnah it says gabi kochim. So the Mishnah in Zvachim regarding karbonis, it says that ashpod va'askala, the spit or the grill that was used to roast the meat from the karbonis. So what do you have to do with it? So as Rashi explains there, there's a problem with this with using this spit the next day because it could be nicer. If you're just going to leave it as is, so the carbon is allowed to be eaten for a day and a night. If it's kachim, if it's kachim kalim, you can eat it for 2 days and a night. But then how are you going to use it later on if inside this spit has in it what was absorbed from kachim from before, and now it's already nicer. After the time, it's nicer, which is leftovers that is a isser of kares to eat from it. So how could you use it? So therefore, the Mishnah there says, what do you do with it? Mag'ilon b'chamen. You have to put it into boiling hot water that will get out the leftovers from the carbonis that's inside of it. So the question is, there it says that boiling hot water is good enough, even though we're talking about a spit and a grill that was used directly in fire. In our Mishnah it said that the rule is kabayla kach peltai, if it was used in fire. So you don't have to malabda, you have to put it in fire itself to be white in fire, and only then does it get out the taste inside of it. Amalei, so Rav Sheshes said to him, Amram beri, Amram my son, ma inyan kachim etzel gulei of the kachavim. How are you comparing? Why are you asking from a Mishnah regarding kachim to our case where we're speaking about what was absorbed from a guy that cooked non-kosher foods in these vessels? Hacha hetera bala. In the case of the kachim, it absorbed from a carbon that when it absorbs it, it's a carbon which is permitted to eat. And therefore we're more lenient about this when it comes to getting it out. Hasa misura bala. However, over there, meaning over here really, in our Mishnah, it's speaking about when it absorbed from the non-kosher foods from a guy. So therefore here it's a bigger problem, and the only way to get it out is by putting it in a fire. That was his answer. So he gave him this answer like with a very strong lashon, like there's no comparison. But as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, it's not so pashut at all. The Gemara is going to go through a few different options to try to explain the difference. But Rava asked on this answer of Rav Sheshes or Rabbe, Soif. But in the end, though, kikapalat isura kapalat. We're not discussing at the time when it absorbs the carbonis. Then again, it's good. You're roasting the carbonis to eat. But the problem is that later on, after the time of eating it, then it becomes nicer. Now it's a isser that's inside of the griddle or of the spit. So at this time, it's isser just as much as giyuli of the kechavim. So what is the difference? So Elo Amarave or Rabbe. So therefore, he said that the pshat here is as follows. Over there, regarding the kachim, when it uses the term mag'ilon, my hag'olah, that term of hag'olah that it says there, nami, what it means is shtife umerike. What it means is that you have to wash it out, rinse it out. It's different pshatim exactly what shtife umerike means, but the point is it's not talking about kashering it to get out the nicer that's left inside of it, that's the balua inside of it. Besides this problem of nicer, there's something else. As Rashi here brings that this is Gzeiras HaKosov regarding karbonis, that there's a few different things that you find regarding this. Rashi brings that when you have any blood of a karban chatas that comes onto a garment, you have to wash it off and scrub it out properly. A kli cheres that was used to cook or to roast the karbonis inside of it. So it says in the pasuk that you have to break it b'mokim kodesh. And then there's also the halacha regarding the other kelim that has to be rinsed out and washed out properly. That's the gzeir. It's a separate gzeiras hakos, nothing to do with the din of noiser. So therefore, regarding the din of noiser, you would have to heat it in fire, just like it says in our Mishnah. When it says there magila and it's talking about something else, this additional gzeiras hakos of rinsing it out. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye asks on Rabba's answer, mi dami. How could you compare? How could you say that this gzeiras hakos of shtifa and merike is what the Mishnah there means when it uses the term mag-ilan? Merika shtifa b'tzayna. This halacha of rinsing it out, that's with cold water. Now the emphasis is that in the Gemara and Zvachim there is a machlekes about this, but apparently the Abai is asking that it's clear that the Man Damar in this Mishnah is the one that holds that it's enough if it's done with cold water. Hag'ala is b'chamin, but the term mag-ilan means with boiling hot water. So how can you say that mag-ilan has nothing to do with taking out the noiser inside these kalim? But that's always what the term mag-ilan means, that you want to purge it. I think that's the word in English. You get to get out what's inside of it. So therefore, Elo Amar Abaye, so Abaye says the answer to this contradiction is different. Yagid olav reye. We use over here the lashon of the pasuk where it says that the friend or the other Mishnah will let know pshat what the meaning in this Mishnah is, and therefore he says as follows: Tana hacha libon. In our Mishnah, it says one detail, how you kasher, and that's libon. When you put it in fire and it gets red hot or becomes white in the fire. But in our Mishnah as well, that's not enough. You need both. It has to be in boiling hot water and in fire. And Tana Hossam, Hagala, in that Mishnah, by Kotchim, it says that you do Hagala, that you put it in boiling hot water, but really you need to have it put into fire as well. In other words, Abaye is saying that you actually need both. Our Mishnah said one detail of it, and the Mishnah in Kotchim said another detail of it. Now the hesber why you would need both, I didn't see a hesber for this. If the point is, once you put it in fire and it mamish becomes white, hot, and it takes it out, why would you need additionally to have it in boiling hot water? Not sure. But this is how Abaye learns it, that each mission is only saying one detail and you have to then put it together. So Rav asks on this answer of Abaye, if that's the point there, so then you can only say your answer as follows. It should say both together that you have to do in one of the Mishnahs. And then and then in the other Mishnah, it could say only one detail. And then you'll say that the Mishnah already told me both together, and I know what it is that you have to do. In the other Mishnah, it said only one. And you'll say that in this Mishnah, the Mishnah was mekatzer, and I could learn from the other Mishnah that mentions both details. But to say that the Mishnah never says it right, in one place it says in fire, and another place it says in boiling hot water, why would the Mishnah do that? Why wouldn't the Mishnah at least once tell me both together how it has to be done? So Ela Marava, therefore Rava says another pshat. Kotchim, Haina Tamayo, when it comes to Kotchim, the reason why it doesn't have to be put in fire to get out the taste from the Noisar, Rav Nachman, Omer Rabba Baravua. So he said that the Omar, Kol Yom V'Yom, every day in the Beis HaMikdash, Nase Giyol L'Chaveirei. What they do the next day, they're roasting in it today with a carbon, and now there's the next day it would become nicer, but the next day they're already using it again to roast in it another carbon. So the roasting of the second carbon, that is putting it back into fire, getting out the taste that there is from the previous carbon. So it's not necessary for the Mishnah to say that you have to put it in fire. That's what they do in the Beis HaMikdash every day, that they roast again another carbon with it. Okay, the Gemara will ask soon, so if that's the case, then there's a problem though. The Mishnah does say mag-ilan. So you understand that it's not necessary to put it into fire, but why does it say mag-ilan? Okay, the Gemara will ask that. Well, here the Gemara first explains, as I started off, regarding Noisar, there's kachim kachim as kachim kalim. By kachim kachim, you could only eat it for the day the carbon was brought and the following night. the next day, it's already nicer. Like kachin kalim, carbon shlamim, for example, you could eat it for 2 days and the night in between. So therefore the Gemara asks, Tainach shlamim. The answer you're giving that the next day you're already heating it up again. So this is a good answer if the day before it was used for a shlamim. The kivin the l'shlei yamim misachli, since a shlamim can be eaten that day and the next day. So mekami, then I have a nicer. Before it becomes nicer, kahav a gil. You're already roasting with it again. Another carbon, which takes out that taste from the previous day, so it'll never become nicer. But elo chatos, however, regarding carbon chatos, kivin de l'yoyim v'layla misachla, it could only be eaten that day that the carbon was brought, and the following night. So kimivashal ba ha'idna, when you cook with it, or really it means when you roast with it on the next day. So chatos have a nicer. So the chatos from the previous day is already nicer. It's too late to say that now you're going to heat it up again to get out the taste. It's already nicer there. Okay, so the Gemara says, Ki hada mevashal ba, I'll link over here. Ki hada mevashal ba lemachar, when you're going to cook with it or you're going to roast with it tomorrow. This is part of the answer, as part of the question that is, sorry. This is all part of the Gemara's question regarding the carbon chatas. Because ki hada mevashal ba lemachar. So when you use it the next day, after you brought the carbon chatas before, and it doesn't matter what you use it for, oy shlamim oy chatas, whether you're going to roast with it the shlamim or the chatas, kapalit neisa chatas, the ha'idna, the chatas ushlamim de lemachar. The nicer of the chatas of today is going to come out in the chatas and the shlamim that you're going to be roasting in it the next day. So it's still going to be a problem. So how can we say that in the Beis HaMikdash it's not necessary to be melabin before you roast with it, because you're always roasting with it before it becomes nicer, but over here it's already nicer, and you're roasting with it with the piece of meat from the carbon the next day, so whatever comes out goes into the new meat that you're roasting today. So the Gemara says, Omri, they answered for this to explain what Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avuha said, that Lo Tzrich, it can only be understand this in the following way. That when you are going to roast with it, a chatos today, hada mevashal bo ha'idna shlamim. What you do is on that very same day, in a time when you know that you just used it for a carbon chatas, that by the time tomorrow comes, it's going to be nicer already. So they will use that very same spit or griddle on the same day to roast with it a carbon shlamim. The chatas de lemachar ushlamim de esmoil. So then on the next day, when it comes the next day, and now they want to use a chatas on that day, and the shlamim from the day before, bahadi adadi kashalim zimnayu. They finish, their time of eating is going to finish at the same time, at the end of that day. Or really by the shlamim, it finishes by the following night, not exactly at the same day. But the point is that already the day before, when you brought the chatas and used the chatas to roast with it, you roasted right afterwards a shlamim. And then on the next day, if you're going to use it for a chatas, you're going to do the same thing. V'hada mevashal shlamim de lamachar. And then on the next day, when you're going to use it for a chatas, you'll again have to roast with it a shlamim in order that it should not become nicer, because the following day it's going to be too late. And so the point of the answer to the Gemara is very simple. If you're using it for a shlamim, so then it's okay that if you're going to roast with it the next day, before it becomes nicer. If you're using a chatas, so then you're going to have to roast with it on the same day in order to get out the taste. That's how it was done in the Beis HaMikdash, so it was never necessary to do separately a libun, because they always roasted it in the right time to make sure that it's out from before.
Can you ask a kasha from chometz? We see that hagol is enough. That you don't need.
Because by chometz we don't usually use it directly in fire. If it's directly in fire, then it's not enough. Then you need the proper libun. It depends. Usually we talk about hagwala.
Okay.
Now here the Gemara asks, Ihochi.
So they kept different utensils in the Beis HaMikdash?
Huh?
They kept the cheshbon what was what.
Yeah, for sure. So the Gemara asks of this.
This is ausgefällt utensils in the Beis HaMikdash?
They had to know what they're doing. They didn't want to throw out things that it should be a problem. Hihachi, but if this is the answer, as Rava said, so the question is, Hag'ol nami lo boy. So then why does it say here, Magilon, that you have to then put it into boiling hot water? You're saying that the process works perfectly. With they keep on roasting karbanis, that it should never come to be nicer in the first place. Kashya. So the Gemara Taka says that this remains a question on this pshat of Rava. Okay, so there's There is a teretz that it says in the Rishonim regarding this, trying to see if I remember why I would need Hagala, because it's a taste. There's a certain taste that comes out. I'm trying to remember. There is a teretz that it says in the Rishonim with this. The rule is whenever the Gemara says kasha, it doesn't mean that it refutes the answer completely. But the Gemara still did not want to accept this answer with the lashon of Hagala that it says here. But the Rav, there's a reason why there has to be Hagala. Rav held that there's a reason why it's still necessary for there to be Hagala. Okay, let's go weiter. The Gemara now brings another answer to the contradiction from our Mishnah to the Mishnah in Zvachim. Rav Papa says the answer is Hai Korid. In the case of the Bishul Akum, or it's not Bishul Akum really, it's the kalim from a guy that was used with non-kosher foods, and that was what's absorbed in the pots. So over there it's Korid. Korid means it's inside for a long time and it gets hardened. It gets very strongly settled inside the walls of the pot, and therefore over there the only way to get it out is if it was used directly in fire, libun. You're going to have to use it directly in fire to get it out. But Hai loy Korid. In the Beis HaMikdash, because they're constantly using it, it's used and it's again roasted, even if it's not mamish on the same day where it didn't get nicer yet. It became nicer already. But because it's constantly being used, so whatever is there, the nicer that's there, never gets settled inside the keli itself to the point that it's going to be necessary to use libun dafke. It's going to be enough if you just roast it in boiling hot water to get it out. Ravashi answers, and here Ravashi goes back to the original answer that Rav Sheshes answered Rav Amram, that asked him this question. The answer is, like Rav Sheshes originally said, that over here in our case, that's in the case actually of the kachim. So when it absorbs from the karbanis, it's what's mutter. And hacha isura bala. Over here in our case regarding the vessels that you buy from Goyim, it absorbs from non-kosher foods. But the question wasn't this, to be idna the kapalit. But later though, in the time when it's coming out, when you're going to cook with it or roast with it again, another carbon. So then what comes out from the kalim? Isura kapalit. At that time it's already nicer, and what comes out should be aser. So the answer to this is, and this is really what Rav Sheshes meant originally when he gave his answer, at that time when the Isser is coming out, so you don't have the actual Isser that's here, that's physically here. So therefore, the Isser it's considered to be much less. When the actual Isser, when it was Mamish Be'en, was the Isser, and that's what got absorbed in the walls of the Kalim or of the pot. So then that's a davar mamashi that was there b'shas the iser. So then in order to get that out, well, machmer, there has to be kaboyle kach pailtoi that you have to have directly in the fire. But over here, if it's only the taste that's inside the walls that comes out later, but it's much weaker than the way it was originally. The way it was originally, it was mutter. And now when it's aser, it's only a taste that's absorbed in the walls. For that, it's enough to just do hagala, and that's why by kachim it says the hagala in boiling hot water is good enough. When it says here that you have to put it into fire directly, so until what point do you have to keep it in the fire? It becomes white in the fire in order to kasher it. Rav Mani says until there's an external layer, a peel that from the keli that comes off from the heat of the fire. Right, so this you see. Going back to what it said before regarding kachim, even according to the answer that we said, that in the Beis HaMikdash, they're constantly using it, and therefore it's not necessary to do a separate libun. When they were constantly using it, they didn't use it by kazeh, that they left it in the fire for such a long period of time that the outer peel came off. So you see that even that answer before in the Gemara agrees to this point that we said here at the end, that by kachim, we're makel about this. Even if you do have to do libun by kachim, and the libun is done by the fact that they keep on roasting with it every single day, but it wasn't to this point where the outer layer comes off. Now the ketzad magilon, regarding hagala, when you want to kasher something with boiling hot water, how does that have to be done? Rav Huna says, Yoyre Ketana, you take a small pot and you put it inside, but Yoyre Gedaila, you put it inside a large pot. And you heat it up, boiling hot, and you put the small pot inside. However, Yoyre Gedaila mai. So what do you do with a very large pot or a cauldron? Big. So how are you going to kasher this? Toshima, so he says, come, I'll teach you what you do in such a case. Tahu duda davoy beirav ikve. There was the Rav Ukva, or Mar Ukva. There was this large pot that Rav Ukva had. Ahadale, so what did he do? Ahadale gedanfe delisha apume. So what he did was he surrounded the edges of the top of the pot with dough that will then allow the water to flow over, to go all the way to the top. Umalyu maya, and he filled it up with water. Va'artacha, and it boiled, it bubbled, and that's how the water went all the way up to the top of the pot completely. So Rava said about this, Man chakim lemevad ki ha milsa. Who is smart to do this way, the way Rav Ukva did it? Ilav Rav Ukva, Rav Ikve, the Gavre Rabahu. He was a great person and understood that it has to be done this way. Because he held when it absorbs, the only way to get it out is the same way, the way it absorbed the blia that was not allowed, the non-kosher. Ma bailoi benitzaitzis. What happens when it absorbs? It also sprays from the hot water or the hot food that's inside the pot, reaches all the way to the edges. In other words, it may be as far as to say when you cook foods, do you fill up the top all the way to the very top? No. So there's always that top part that's not filled with the foods, with the non-kosher foods. So you would think maybe when you have to kasher this large pot, it's not necessary to kasher all the way to the edges, mamish. But no, Rav Ukva understood that when you cook, even though you don't fill it up all the way to the top, but it's still from the foods inside the pot, as it's cooking and bubbling, there are still from the non-kosher foods that sprays, that goes there all the way on the top. So therefore, I've piled the b'nitzaitzis. So too, when you want to kasher it, also you have to make sure that it sprays, that it comes all the way to the top. But still, Rashi clarifies, it wouldn't be enough to do the same as it is when you cook it. Just put the water inside. You don't have to fill it up all the way to the top, and just rely on the fact that it's going to spray over a little bit. That's not enough because you cooked in it many, many times. So it sprayed all over on the edges, on the top of the pot, after so many times cooking. You're going to just do that one time with kashering. It's not going to be sufficient to get every single area where the non-kosher hot item of the food went. So therefore you have to do it the way he did it. That was the Chachmi understood that it's necessary to put around the dough that it should be able to reach all the way to the top over the edges of the pot. Going back to the Mishnah, so it said hasakin, a knife, shafa v'hi tahira. So you have to rub it against when the smith makes the knife, he has that vessel that he uses to make the knife. What's it called? You have a word for it?
You mean to make it sharp?
Yeah, maybe. When you sharpen it with...
It's a grinding stone.
A grinding stone, yeah. So you rub it against that grinding stone, and v'hi tahira. And the knife will be tahir.
Because you're removing metal.
Could be, yeah.
That's the only way.
Okay, or at least you're removing any residue of fats on the first surface of it, yeah. You're removing any of the leftovers, the fats that could be on it. Omar Rav Ukva Bar Chome, Rav Ukva Bar Chome says, V'noyatza asara pamim bekarka. Yet you have to stick it into the ground 10 times to kasher it. So according to Rashi's pshat, this is in addition to what it says in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that you have to rub it against this stone, but besides that, you also have to stick it into the ground 10 times. Other Rishonim though disagree and say that it's either or. The Mishnah is giving you, the Gemara here is giving you another option. Amar Avoda Zara Rav Yeshua clarifies the pshat. What kind of a karka are we talking about? The karka she'ena avuda. It can't be just some soft ground that you just plowed and doesn't accomplish anything. It has to be a hard piece of earth that you stick it into that will get off the residue of any fats that could be on it from non-kosher food. Rav Kahana said about this, we're talking about a good quality knife that doesn't have any grooves in it, where even after you do all of this, there could still be some non-kosher fats that are stuck there.
What kind of seconds did you cut cold with it? You cut hot with it?
Cold. We're only talking about cold over here. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned this as Nabrais as well. Sakin Yafe she'ein bo gumais. A good quality knife that doesn't have grooves in it, you can stick it into the ground 10 times and it'll be kosher. So here the Gemara clarifies what kind of knife we're talking about. We're talking over here all about using this knife that was never used in hot, boiling hot. It was used for cold things, for non-kosher use in a non-kosher kitchen, but because it could be used with dava charif, with onion, or things that are... it's still beleya, but it's for this. It's enough just to make sure that there's no residue of anything on it outside, and that's enough. But if it was used with boiling hot, so then like we learned before in the Mishnah, you're going to have to kasher it in boiling hot water. And the source for this is, where do you see that this was done regarding when it's used not with cooking? Kiha the Mar Yehuda ubati bar Tuvi. So there was Mar Yehuda and Bati bar Tuvi have a Yosfi Kamei the Shver Malka. They were sitting in front of Shver Malka, which was a guy. And I think he was the king of Persian king, I believe, right? Shver Malka. So this Shver Malka, he knew halachas, he knew dinim of Torah. So Aisle Kamayu Esrege, they brought an esrig, Pasak Ochal, he caught and he ate, and Pasak and he caught, and Vahavle Lebati Bartuvi, and he also shared and he allowed Bati Bartuvi to eat from it. From the knife that he used for himself, he caught also for Bati Bartuvi to eat from it. And then after this, Hodar Dotsa Sar Zimni Ba'ara, he went and stuck the knife into the ground 10 times, and Pasak Havle Lamar Yehuda, and then he cut more of the esrig to give to Mar Yehuda to eat. Why did he stick it into the ground? In order to kasher it. Because he's serving Mar Yehuda, so he wants it to be a kasher knife for him to eat from it. You don't want to give him something which is aser. So Amalei Bati Bartuvi asks him, Fahu Gavra, and that individual, referring to himself, Lav Bar Yisraelu, is he not a Yid? Only for Mar Yehuda you're making sure to serve that it should be kasher, but for me not. Amalei, so you answer him, Ma Kimli Begaveh. The master, meaning Mar Yehuda, I know who he is. I know that he eats only kasher, so therefore I kasher it for him. But Umar like Kimli Begaveh. But you, I don't know. I don't know that you're careful with this, and therefore I didn't do it for you. Ikadamri, another version is he told him even sharper. Amalei, he told him, Itke, my of this borte. Remember what you did last night. Sarashi explains, because by the Persians, the derech was that they had guests. What did they do? They sent them women the night before. So by Bati Bartuvi, he accepted this, and Rav Yehuda did not accept this. So he said, I know exactly what your behavior is, and therefore I didn't have to be careful with giving you, serving you a esrog which is not kosher. But for Mar Yehuda, I know that he's careful, so therefore he kashed it before he served him. Adran Allah, Chaseicheres Apayel, Eslikala, Masechta Avoda Zara. We shall return to you, Masechta Avoda Zara. So the Rebbe once made a hadrin on Masechta Avoda Zara. It's printed in Lakota Sichas Chelik Yutes in Parshas Devarim, the last Sicha there. And the Rebbe explained that you look at this story here, it's very difficult to understand what the story over here is. So, because if he's anyway sticking the knife 10 times into the ground in order to kasher it from Mar Yehuda, why did he not do it for Bati, what's the name over here? Bati Bartuvi before? What's the big deal? Why didn't you want to do it for him before? And besides that, the Rebbe says, the Gemara says in the first version, the Gemara says he told him that you I'm not sure about. If he's not sure about, so he could serve him not kosher food. He's not sure, so but he didn't want to be machshel someone with the isser. He knew the halachas and he knew exactly what you have to do, so he let him do it a minute before. What's the big deal? So the Rebbe first of all says, you look here in Taisvis. Taisvis says that this Bati Bartuvi, according to Taisvis' opinion, Rashi doesn't agree with this, but according to Taisvis, he was a Chatchila Evet Kanani. He was already freed, but he wasn't freed fully. In order to be freed fully as an Evet Kanani, you have to have a shtar shichror. He didn't have that document of freedom, and therefore it was really mutter for him to have a relation with a non-Jewish woman. So therefore, this that he sent him a non-Jewish woman from the night before wasn't really a problem for him. That's one point that Rebbe brings that Taisus over here says. And based on this, the Rebbe explains that the knife that was being used here, the issue with this knife was not the fact that it was used for non-kosher meat and so on. Shvar Malka had enough knives that he knew that he's serving Yidden, he's not going to take from a non-kosher kitchen. It was knives that was used with kosher foods. The issue though here was that it had a bliya from Bishul Akum. Even if it's used for just vegetables and things like that, but if it's a bliya of Bishul Akum, that's something which is asr as well. That's the kind of knife that we're talking about over here. And therefore the Gemara is saying that it's all connected to when it brings this. When Rashi says, remember what happened the night before regarding this, that he sent a woman and then he accepted and he did not. What's the whole issue of Bishul Akum? Bishul Akum is all not to come to marry a guy. Mishum chasnus, mishum b'nei seyin. So this is what he was saying to him, at least in the second version of the Gemara. The last version of the Gemara here says that by him, he is careful, and you're not careful. Or according to Taisvis, by him there was an Isser, by him there wasn't an Isser. Okay, so the point of here is that because we're speaking about Bishul Akum, so therefore, regarding Amar Yehuda, he did it for him. He saw that that's negaya to him, and not my Bati Bartuvi. But then the Rebbe says in the Sikha another very geschmacka point that we're talking here about a melech, and a melech, and this is not only by a melech Yisrael, but even by a guy, he's not supposed to be doing things just to serve other people. It's not the covet of the melech. So he's going to especially go and serve for a yid and go on to be noyetz, the sakin and the karka 10 times. How's a melech is going to go and do this for you? So therefore, what the Gemara is saying over here is that the melech over here said that I wasn't sure whether you're going to be meisa nefesh for this or not. Meaning, I'm the king, and I'm not supposed to be serving you and giving you food where I have to do it and kasher it for you, and therefore, since you're sitting in front of a king, you're going to have to eat the food anyways, because it's pekuach nefashis. When a king serves you food, that even if there's a problem of bishul akum. But he said, by Yehuda, by Mar Yehuda, I know who Mar Yehuda is, that he is going to be ready to be meisa nefesh. So in such a case, I have no choice. Even though usually a king is not supposed to serve another person, and do specially for a yid to go and be noyetzet bekarka, but this yid, which I know he's going to be meisa nefesh, he's not going to eat it, even though he's sitting in front of a king. So therefore I knew that I'm going to have to do this for him. So therefore he was noyetzet bekarka. The Rebbe there brings that mitzvah shani, in a case where it's done for the sake of a mitzvah, a king is allowed to do something for someone else. So therefore for him I had to do this service for him, to prepare it for him. So therefore the Rebbe concludes and says, this is the reason why, this is the story which is the end of Masechta Avoda Zara. Because over here you see the ultimate bittul, to nullify, to get rid of Avoda Zara. Here you have a king, a Persian king, which is very powerful, and there's two yidden sitting in front of him, but one yid, the melech himself, recognized that this is a yid of Bal Mesiris Nefesh. And even though I'm not supposed to be serving him, but this yid is going to stand firm and strong in front of me, and he's not going to eat. So I have no choice. I'm going to have to, if I want him to eat, I'm going to have to do it for him. So this is the fulfillment of the Nevuah, V'hayim Malachim Umnayach V'Sadasayim and Ikisayach, that the king went and served Mar Yehuda. And this is the ultimate bittul of Avoda Zara, to get rid of the powers in the world that present themselves of being independent and powerful, that over here, this was completely in his battle when he served him. That's why this story is the conclusion and the bittul of the entire Masechta of Avoda Zara. Adron Allah, Masechta